Is there something money can't buy? The story you're about to hear today is about a man who thought he could buy even the family of his dreams, but discovered that destiny had other plans for him. If you believe that some connections go beyond what we can explain, this narrative will deeply touch your hearts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Marcus Blackwell was sitting in his office on the 60th floor of one of Manhattan's tallest buildings, looking out at the city he had conquered. At 42 years old, he owned a real estate empire worth billions, but his personal life was a desert of failed relationships and loneliness. 3 marriages had ended in divorce, each more bitter than the last. Marcus always knew that women approached him for his money, but he accepted this as the price of his wealth. What he couldn't accept was that none of them had given him what he desired most, an heir. Marcus had tried everything: fertility treatments, traditional surrogacy, serious relationships with women who promised they wanted children. But each attempt ended in disappointment. His ex-wives always changed their minds, worried about their careers, or simply without real interest in motherhood. "I need someone who really needs the money," he thought, looking through the window at the busy streets below. "Someone who has no choice but to fulfill the agreement." It was then that a disturbing and desperate idea arose in his mind. What if he looked for someone on the streets? Someone who was so desperate they would accept any proposal in exchange for a better life. Marcus knew it was a morally questionable idea, but his desperation for a child had overcome his scruples. For 2 weeks, Marcus discreetly observed different areas of the city where homeless people congregated. He wasn't looking for just anyone. He needed someone who met his specific criteria: young, healthy, and with an appearance that indicated they could generate a beautiful and intelligent child. It was on a cold Thursday in December that he saw her for the first time. Under a bridge in Central Park, a young woman was sitting with some belongings scattered around her. Even dirty and in worn clothes, it was possible to see that she had been beautiful once. Her blonde hair was tangled, but her blue eyes still shone with an intelligence that caught Marcus's attention. He observed her for a few days before approaching. She seemed to be alone, without apparent addictions, and had a dignity in her gestures that contrasted with her situation. The following Friday, Marcus approached her cautiously. He had dressed more casually so as not to draw unnecessary attention. "Excuse me," he said softly. The woman looked up, immediately defensive. "If you're looking for trouble, you'd better look elsewhere." "I'm not looking for trouble. Actually, I have a proposal that might interest you." She studied him with suspicion. "What kind of proposal?" Marcus sat on a nearby rock, maintaining respectful distance. "First, what's your name? Why do you want to know?" "Because I want to treat you like a person, not like, well, whatever you think I want." She hesitated. Sarah Coleman." "Sarah, I'm Marcus, and I have a proposal that could change your life." Marcus explained his situation carefully. He wanted a child, was willing to pay very well for it, and would offer complete medical care, adequate housing during pregnancy, and a substantial amount after the child's birth. $1 million, he said finally. $500,000 during pregnancy for your expenses and care, $500,000 after birth. Sarah stared at him as if he had spoken in another language. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. In exchange, you would carry my child for 9 months and give me the child after birth. You would have the best quality medical care, live in a comfortable house, and then could start a new life with $1 million. And if I want to keep the baby?" Marcus had thought about this possibility. The contract would be very clear about that. The child would be legally mine from the beginning, but, he hesitated, you could have visitation rights if you wanted. Imagine the shock and confusion Sarah must have felt with this proposal. Sarah remained silent for a long moment. Marcus could see the internal battle happening in her mind. "Why me?" she finally asked. "Because you seem to be a good person in a bad situation. And because I need someone who really needs the money." Sarah laughed bitterly. "At least you're honest about your motives. Can I ask how you got to this situation?" Sarah looked at the horizon. "I lost my job a year ago. I was working as a nurse, but I made a mistake that cost a patient's life. I lost my license, my apartment, my family rejected me. One thing led to another." Marcus was surprised. "You're a nurse?" "I was. Now I'm just another invisible person on the street." "Sarah, that makes you even more suitable for what I'm proposing. You understand medical care about pregnancy and childbirth." Sarah closed her eyes. "I need to think about this." "Of course, but don't take too long. Winter is coming, and offers like this don't appear every day." 3 days later, Sarah found Marcus in the same place. She was cleaner, as if she had prepared for an important meeting. "I accept," she said without preambles. "Are you sure?" "I am, but I want some conditions." "I'm listening." "I want psychological support throughout the pregnancy. I want to choose my own obstetrician, and I want you to be present at important exams, not because you're obligated, but because you're the child's father." Marcus was surprised by the maturity of her demands. "I agree to everything. And one more thing. I want to really get to know you during these 9 months. If I'm going to carry your child, I want to know what kind of person you are." "That can be arranged." Marcus installed Sarah in a comfortable apartment on the Upper East Side. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, safe, and well furnished. He also provided appropriate clothes and ensured she had access to the best medical care in the city. The first medical consultation confirmed that Sarah was healthy and fit to become pregnant. The in vitro fertilization process was scheduled for the following week. During consultations, Marcus observed Sarah carefully. She asked intelligent questions, took notes about everything the doctors said, and demonstrated medical knowledge. That impressed the professionals. She really was a nurse, he thought, and a good one, it seems. The IVF procedure was successful on the first attempt. 2 weeks later, the test confirmed Sarah was pregnant. Marcus felt a euphoria he hadn't experienced in years. Finally, he would have the child he had always desired. Sarah, in turn, reacted to the news with a mixture of joy and melancholy. "Congratulations," she said to Marcus after they received the result. "You're going to be a father." "We're going to be parents," Marcus corrected, and immediately wondered why he had said that. During the first trimester, Marcus visited Sarah weekly to monitor the pregnancy's progress. These visits, which began as routine checkups, gradually transformed into something more personal. Sarah was interesting company. She read voraciously, had well-formed opinions on various subjects, and a unique perspective on life that Marcus had never encountered in his usual social circle. "How did you become a nurse?" Marcus asked during one of his visits. "I always wanted to help people," Sarah replied, caressing her still small belly. "My mother died of cancer when I was a teenager, and the nurses who cared for her were angels. In my life, I wanted to give that back." "And the mistake you mentioned?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I administered the wrong medication to a patient. It was my 3rd consecutive 12-hour shift. I was exhausted. I mixed up 2 vials. The patient had a fatal allergic reaction. It was an accident. Tell that to his family, or to myself, every time I close my eyes." Marcus saw the genuine pain in her eyes and felt something he didn't expect: compassion. In the 4th month of pregnancy, something changed in the dynamic between Marcus and Sarah. The visits became more frequent and longer. They dined together, watched movies, talked about everything and anything. Marcus discovered that Sarah had an emotional intelligence he had never valued in his previous relationships. She really listened to him, asked insightful questions, and offered insights that made him see his own life differently. Have you ever stopped to think about why you want to have a child so much? Sarah asked one night while they prepared dinner together. To continue my legacy, I suppose. But what kind of legacy? Money, companies, or something more? Marcus fell silent, thinking, I never thought much about it. Maybe you should. A child isn't a project or an acquisition. It's a person who will need love, guidance, presence. Do you think I would be a bad father? Sarah studied him carefully. I think you have the potential to be an incredible father. You just need to discover your real motivations. In the 5th month, during an ultrasound exam, something extraordinary happened. When they saw the baby on the screen, both Marcus and Sarah began to cry. It's a girl, the doctor announced with a smile. Marcus looked at Sarah and saw a change. In her eyes, what had begun as a commercial transaction was transforming into something much deeper and more complicated. Sarah, he said after the exam, I need to tell you something. What? I'm falling in love with you. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Marcus, you can't do this. You can't complicate things like this. Why not? We're two adults. We're going through this experience together. Because I'm also falling in love with you, she interrupted. And that makes everything much more complicated. In the following months, Marcus and Sarah fought against the feelings they were developing for each other. Both knew they had entered that agreement for practical reasons, but the pregnancy had brought them together in a way neither had expected. Marcus began to question his original motivations. Did he really just want an heir, or did he want a real family? Sarah faced an even greater dilemma. She was carrying a child she had agreed to give up, but now found herself in love with the child's father and increasingly attached to the baby she was carrying. What are we going to do? Sarah asked one night, in the 7th month of pregnancy. I don't know, Marcus admitted. I've never been in a situation like this. I should leave. Finish the pregnancy alone and deliver the baby as we agreed. I don't want you to leave. Then what do you want? Marcus took a deep breath. I want us to be a family. You, me, and our daughter. Marcus finally opened his heart. He had been abandoned as a baby and raised in an orphanage until he was 5, when he was adopted by an elderly couple who couldn't have children of their own. They were good people, Marcus explained, but I always felt like I was trying to compensate for the fact that I wasn't really their son. That's why I worked so hard to be successful. And that's why you want to have a biological child so much. Yes, I want my daughter to never feel like I felt. I want her to know from the first day that she is loved and wanted. Sarah held his hand. Marcus, do you realize the irony of the situation? What irony? You're trying to give your daughter exactly what you're denying her, a mother who loves her. Marcus looked at Sarah and finally understood. What he had planned as a commercial transaction had transformed into the family he had always desired, but never knew how to create. In the 9th month, 2 weeks before delivery, Sarah made a discovery that would change everything. While researching her own family for the baby's medical history, she found information that left her in shock. Marcus, she said one morning, with documents spread over the table, I need to show you something incredible. What is it? Sarah showed him a birth certificate and some investigation documents she had commissioned. I found information about my biological parents, and Marcus, do you remember the date and place where you were abandoned? Marcus looked at the documents Sarah was showing and felt the world spin around him. The dates, the hospital, the names. Sarah, this can't be possible. We're siblings, Marcus. Blood siblings. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus looked at Sarah's belly, then at the documents, then back at her. The most shocking revelation of all. Destiny had reunited two siblings in the most unlikely way possible. Our parents were too young and very poor, Sarah explained, her hands trembling as she held the documents. They abandoned us 2 years apart. You first, then me. But we were taken to different orphanages. Marcus was in shock. How is this possible? How can destiny be so cruel? Marcus, our daughter, Sarah began, but couldn't finish the sentence. She's our niece biologically, but our daughter in every other way, Marcus completed, the reality of the situation beginning to settle. Sarah began to cry. What have we done, Marcus? What have we done? We didn't know, Marcus said, trying to calm himself. There was no way we could have known. But now we know. And our daughter, she's going to be born from this impossible situation. In the following days, both Marcus and Sarah entered deep emotional crisis. The love they had developed for each other was now contaminated by the revelation that they were siblings. The child they were expecting with so much affection now represented a genetically complicated situation. Marcus discreetly consulted several geneticists and doctors. The good news was that, as siblings from different parents, half-siblings, the genetic risks were lower than if they were full siblings, but they still existed. We need to do all possible tests, said Dr. Harrison, the geneticist Marcus consulted. But it's important that you know that many children born from consanguineous relationships are perfectly healthy. Sarah wanted to do an amniocentesis to check if the child had any genetic anomalies, but Marcus was hesitant. What if we discover she has problems? He asked. Then we'll be prepared, Sarah responded. This child is our responsibility, Marcus, regardless of how she was conceived. Yes, ours, whether as siblings raising a niece or as whatever we are now. The tests revealed that the girl was developing normally without signs of genetic anomalies. It was a relief, but didn't resolve the emotional dilemma they faced. We can't continue as we were, Sarah said in a painful conversation, what we felt for each other. Now we know it was based on a connection that goes beyond the romantic. Are you saying what we felt wasn't real? No, I'm saying it was too real. We were siblings unconsciously recognizing each other. The connection we felt was familial, not romantic. Marcus reflected on this. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's why I felt so comfortable with you from the beginning. And maybe that's why I trusted you when I shouldn't trust anyone. When it was time for delivery, Marcus and Sarah had reached an agreement. They would raise the child together as siblings, offering her the love and stability they never had. Emma was born on a sunny spring morning, perfect and healthy. When the doctor placed her in Sarah's arms, both she and Marcus cried, not just from joy, but from relief and a strange sense of completeness. She's beautiful, Marcus whispered, touching his daughter's face. She's ours, Sarah replied, in a way we never imagined. Marcus bought a large house in Westchester with separate rooms for him and Sarah and a special room for Emma. They presented themselves as siblings raising a child together, which was technically true. Sarah returned to study and eventually recovered her nursing license. Marcus reduced his work hours to spend more time with Emma. Together, they created a loving and stable environment for the girl. Do you think we should tell her the truth when she grows up? Sarah asked one night while they watched Emma sleep. The truth that we're siblings? Yes, the truth about how she was conceived. We'll decide that when she's older. Emma grew up in a house full of love. but always knew her family was different. Marcus and Sarah never lied about being siblings. But the child developed her own theories about why her parents never married. When Emma turned 16, she finally asked directly, "Why have you never told me how I was born?" Marcus and Sarah looked at each other. They had been preparing for this moment for years. "How do you know there's something to tell?" Sarah asked. "Because I'm not stupid. You love each other, but not like husband and wife. You love me more than anything, but sometimes I see sadness in your eyes when you look at me, and because I did a DNA test for a school project." Marcus and Sarah told Emma the whole truth about how they met, about the initial agreement, about the discovery that they were siblings, and about how they decided to raise her together. Emma listened to everything in silence, processing each revelation. "So," she said finally, "you found each other when you needed each other most, created a family in the most unlikely way possible, and gave me more love than most children with normal families receive." "It's one way to see it," Marcus said hesitantly. "It's the only way to see it," Emma replied, hugging them both. "You're the best parents I could have asked for. I don't care how I got here. I only care that you wanted me so much that you overcame all difficulties to give me a family." 5 years later, Emma was in college studying medicine, inspired by Sarah's story. Marcus had expanded his business to include assistance programs for homeless people. Sarah ran a free clinic for the homeless. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Sarah asked Marcus one afternoon, while they organized Emma's photos for a graduation album. "Look at her," Marcus replied, pointing to a photo of Emma volunteering at Sarah's clinic. "She's intelligent, compassionate, determined. She knows where she came from and where she's going. We did more than the right thing. We created a miracle." Sarah smiled. A miracle born from an impossible situation. The best kind of miracle. Years later, when Emma became a doctor and began working with abandoned children, she wrote a letter to Marcus and Sarah. "You two taught me that family isn't about blood or perfect circumstances. It's about love, sacrifice, and the decision to stay together even when the whole world says you shouldn't. You gave me the greatest gift possible, the certainty that I am unconditionally loved. It doesn't matter how my story began. What matters is how you decided to write it together with me." Marcus and Sarah kept the letter as their most precious treasure. They had started as desperate strangers making an impossible agreement, discovered they were family in a way they never imagined, and ended up creating something even more beautiful. A chosen family based on unconditional love and the daily decision to care for each other. Sometimes destiny places us in the most impossible situations to teach us the most important lessons. True love transcends all circumstances, and family is what we build with the people we choose to love. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel for more narratives about how love can transform even the most complicated situations into something beautiful.